Hey nerds, in this video, we're going to take the Eternal Might EDH Precon from Aether Drift and transform it into a CanLander ready deck to jam with your friends. All we have to do is take 15 cards out and put 15 cards in. If you don't know what CanLander is, check out my previous upgrade video where I kind of go in depth on the format, and check out the link pinned in the comment section down below. Or you can check out LJT MTG over on YouTube for some great Canadian Highlander content. Okay, let's get into it. Start with the most exciting part, the point spread. Our points are Mox Jet, Mox Pearl, Mox Sapphire, and Ancient Tomb for a total of 10 points. These points might be a little boring, but the idea was to add a lot of acceleration for the deck. Esper isn't known for its ability to ramp, so I wanted to make sure we could start casting the 4 and 5 drops in the deck as fast as possible. Now, there's an argument that we can cut Mox Sapphire for Soul Ring, but the deck can be pretty pip intensive, which is why I picked a third Mox. I also added Chrome Mox for similar reasons, we just want to go fast. You could also add Mox Diamond over Chrome Mox, but whatever of these two you want, I think will be fine to play with. Now for the non-pointed cards, I wanted to lean into the token theme and add more interaction. Staff of the Storyteller, Chivalric Alliance, and Deadly Dispute will draw us cards and our powerhouses and token decks. Chthonian Nightmare will let us sacrifice our fodder tokens for more precious zombies. I was going back and forth between Chthonian Nightmare and Recurring Nightmare, but I think the mana requirement for Chthonian Nightmare makes it a bit better. The difference between 2 and 3 mana might not seem like a lot, but trust me it is. I also added Animate Dead for similar reasons, but we can also steal our opponent's creatures with this. I also wanted to add more interaction, so Fatal Push, Path to Exile, Infernal Grasp, Dismember, and Snuff Out. It's cheap creature removal, which the deck can really use. Alright, so we know what to add, but what about the cuts? Well, let's start with the easy ones. Anything that mentions a commander. So Command Tower, Path of Ancestry, Commander Sphere, and Arcane Signet. Next, let's cut the less efficient ramp. So Dimir Signet, Orzhov Signet, and Crowded Crypt. This next cut really hurts because I love bounce lands, but Orzhov Basilica just isn't as good in 1v1. Now finally, I wanted to cut any expensive spells that I felt were low impact in a more 1v1 competitive format. So Angel of Sanctions, Timeless Dragon, Twisted Abomination, Rot Hulk, Dread Summons, and Commence the Endgame. On the last video, I said I wasn't going to talk about the mana base, but I've since changed my mind. You can always leave the mana base alone, and I think it'd be fine for a casual setting with your friends, but it's something that you can definitely do to make the deck that much better and get a more Canadian Highlander feel. After all, we're playing with the strongest cards in Magic, so let's play with some of the strongest lands. I don't think there's an issue with the number of lands in the deck, but too many of them either enter tapped or only add colorless mana. So the first cuts were the monocolored deserts. The cycling cost on them is simply too much, and they only add 1 color and we're at a 3-color deck. Next were like the slow fetches like Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. We don't want tap lands unless they really provide a massive benefit to us. Arcane Sanctum can be replaced with Rafine's Tower since we're adding real fetch lands. And as much as I love the bicycle lands, Irrigated Farmland and Fetid Pools are still way too slow for the deck. Yes, they have a land type, but I think they're better replaced with Surveil lands. Speaking of Surveil lands, the Temples are just worse Surveil lands, so they can go too. Now, Ash Barrens and Accursed Duneyard are untapped lands, but since they only produce colorless, I cut them. Now, Duneyard could be worth trying, but I don't think it's worth spending effectively 3 mana to just regenerate a zombie. Exotic Orchard wasn't good enough when you only have 1 opponent, so that made the cut. And finally, I cut 3 islands, 3 plains, and 3 swamps. Now, for the lands I added, let's start with the fetches. I added all of our on-color fetches, Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta, and Marsh Flats. And now for off-color, I added the remaining black fetches with Burning Catacombs and Bloodstained Mire. This is because the deck is over 50% black mana. I then added 1 off-color blue and 1 off-color white fetch. I picked Arid Mesa and Scalding Tarn, but it doesn't really matter. For fetchable dual lands, I added all of the original on-color duals and shocks. These are pretty straightforward here, they're the best lands we can have for this deck. For the Surveil lands, I only added Undercity Sewers and Shadowy Backstreet. I don't think we want all 3 of them, so I prioritized the ones that tap for black. I also added the new lands from Duskmourn and Aether Drift, which are called Unlucky Lands according to the MTG wiki, but I like the name the Verge lands. Let me know what you think we should call them in the comment section down below. You could also replace these with the fast lands, but I like new and shiny things. Now for utility lands, I added all 3 of the Kamigawa channel lands and cut basics for them. And I went ahead and cut one of our basic swamps for Fel of the Profane to add more removal. And finally, I decided to add Karakas and cut a Plains for it, because Karakas is just really good. Now, as I was recording this video, I realized I didn't add Field of the Dead to the deck. I feel like it probably has a home in here, I'm just not sure what I want to cut for it. Probably Unholy Grotto. As always, you can find a link to the deck in the video description below. The sideboard are the ads, and the considering are the cuts. I would love to hear your thoughts on this video and this series, and if it helped convince you to try CanLander out. If you want more content like this, subscribe and hit that like button. When a video gets a lot of subscribers, I know people want more content like it. Also check out some of my other videos shown on screen here. Alrighty nerds, I'll see you in the next one.